Do you ever dream of winning the lottery? I realize that's an extremely un-Methodist question with which to begin a sermon. But hey, let's be honest. Methodist or otherwise, don't we all at times have those dreams of winning the lottery, of hitting it big and being set for life? Well, imagine that you won the lottery and the payout is the following: $864 a day, every day for the rest of your life. However, there's one stipulation. Every day, $864 is deposited in your bank account, and you are free to withdraw it and to use it as you wish. But at the end of the day, whatever you have not withdrawn is taken away. That is, there's no rollover. You can't carry anything over into the next day. At the end of each day, your account zeroes out. And then the next day, a new $864 is deposited. If this were the arrangement and you really wanted to have a lot of money to do some truly great things with, what would you do? Obviously, if you're smart, every day you make a point to get all the money out of your account. In fact, this would probably be the first thing you do every single day. Go to the bank and withdraw it all. Get it working for you. Only a fool would leave any money in there to be lost. $864 a day, every day, with no rollover. That's 86,400 cents. Well, what if I were to tell you that we all have won the lottery and that the payout is precisely this same number? It's true. The lottery we have all won is called life, and the payout is in time. Every day we are each given 86,400 seconds to do with as we wish. But there is no rollover. We cannot store the time up and go and get it later. Every day the account zeroes out. It's done and it's over. Use it or lose it. Obviously, the wise person who wants to maximize their winnings taps the account dry, seeks to make the best possible use of the time given them each and every day. Time. This is the topic I'd like to consider on this first Sunday of the new year as we close out the year past and begin to look to a new year ahead. The hymn that we are considering today in our closing hymn this morning in our final installment of our holiday study of great Christian music is a hymn that's all about time. It is the hymn, "O God, Our Help in Ages Past." And it was written in 1719 by the poet Isaac Watts. Isaac Watts is generally considered to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, hymn writer of all time. He's often referred to as the father of English hymnody. In fact, in the early days of our nation, some churches sang nothing but Watts' hymns. Some of his more familiar compositions are "Marching to Zion," "When I Survey the Wondrous Cross," and most appropriate for the last few weeks, "Joy to the World." His hymn writing career came about in this way. In England, in the late 17th century, the Puritans were in charge. And the Puritans, of course, they hated anything fun, As far as they were concerned, as a Christian, if you weren't miserable, then you were probably doing something really bad, right? And as part of this sort of anti-happiness movement, one of the things they did was outlaw all forms of sacred music except a very ancient style of chanting, the Psalms. No other music was allowed, not even Christmas carols. Well, Isaac Watts didn't agree with this. As a young man, he felt that people should be free to express their faith in their own way. And as part of his and others' movement to counter the dreary singing of the Psalms that had taken over the church, Watts set about rewriting all of the Psalms in his own interpretation. And this was found to be incredibly popular among the people. Our hymn today is one of these psalm hymns. It is Watts' take on the 90th Psalm just read. And as mentioned, it is all about time. The text and the hymn contrast the fleeting nature of human life, the lack of time, against the eternal nature of God, the endless time. And on first reading, both text and hymn seem somewhat pessimistic. Sort of like, life is short and difficult and lousy. What's the point? But if we look closer, we see that the meaning is far deeper than this. Against this struggle with the very brief transitory nature of human life, the psalmist, traditionally understood to be Moses here, who had lived a long life and had learned a lot, uses this key line, which is the center of the psalm. It's the pivot. He says, "Lord, teach us to number our days." This is the key line. Lord, teach us to number our days. And understand by this, the writer isn't just saying, Lord, teach us to count off each day, to cross off another day on the calendar on our way to death or something. No. And in fact, he's saying, Lord, teach us to make the most of each day we're given, to get the maximum out of our time. So how do we do this? Well, drawing on themes in the text and the hymn, I'd like to offer a few suggestions as we start this new year. And for the purpose of memory, I'm going to organize things around the word time, T-I-M-E. 4 key concepts to keep in mind to make the best possible use of our time this year, to increase our winnings in the year ahead. T-I-M-E. Thankfulness, investment, movement, eternity. Concept number 1, thankfulness. Someone once said, every day God gives us 86,400 seconds. Can't we take at least one of those seconds to say thank you? In the psalm, the author says, satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love so that we may rejoice and be glad all of our days. Make us glad as many days as you have afflicted us. Notice what he's saying, in effect, that life has its struggles, but every day, Lord, make sure I see the good, the gift of the day, that I embrace your love and blessing. First key step in using time is it's drawing out the blessings, seeing the good in each day that we're given. And what's important to understand is that we can train ourselves to do exactly this. How? Well, have you ever heard of the reticular activating system? Behavioral scientists have discovered that we usually see the things that we are prepared to see. This is all centered in a network of nerve cells called the reticular activating system, and everybody has this. It works like this. Once something has been brought to our attention and we're prepared to see it, we suddenly will start seeing it virtually everywhere that we go. For example, let's say you decide to buy a new car, and you make up your mind, you're going to buy a certain brand, and a certain body style, and a certain color. Well, now suddenly, you see exactly that car everywhere. You see them on the road, in TV ads, newspapers, magazines, online, they're everywhere. What has happened? Well, they were always there, just the same. The difference is that the moment you were prepared to see them, your reticular activating system kicked in, and suddenly you saw them all around you. It happens in other areas of life too. We see what we are prepared to see. If we are prepared to see doom and gloom this year, then that is exactly what we will see. If, on the other hand, we've prepared ourselves to see opportunities and joy, then that's what we're going to see. First step in making the best use of time, the day is given. Resolve to see the treasure, not just the struggle. There are gifts in every single day. So many people miss them, and in response, they throw away long stretches of their lives in sorrow and defeat, rather than being filled with the joy that God longs for them to have. Consider the following illustration, and it's an illustration on behalf of we bald people everywhere. But, there once was a woman who woke up one morning and looked in the mirror, and she noticed that she had only 3 hairs on her head. Well, she said, I think I'll braid my hair today. And so she did. She had a wonderful day. The next day she woke up, looked in the mirror, and saw that she had only 2 hairs on her head. She said, I think I'll part my hair down the middle today. And so she did. She had a marvelous day. The next day she woke up, looked in the mirror, and noticed that she had only 1 hair on her head. Well, she said, today I'm going to wear my hair in a ponytail. And so she did. She had a fun day. The next day she woke up, looked in the mirror, and noticed that there wasn't a single hair on her head. Yay! She exclaimed, I don't have to fix my hair today. And with that, she went on to have a great day. How are you choosing to see things? This year, resolve to see the blessings. In fact, resolve every day. Resolve, this is a challenge. Resolve every day to see at least 10 blessings. Make that a goal every day. I'm going to see 10 blessings, and I'm going to give thanks to God for them. First concept to keep in mind to make the best possible use of the time given this new year ahead. Empty out the account, get the richest winnings, is thankfulness. Concept number 2, then, invest. One author writes, there are 168 golden hours in each week. The average person will spend about 56 of those hours sleeping, about 24 eating and bathing, and about 50 working or traveling to work. That means that there are only about 35 hours a week of discretionary time left over, and that's about 5 hours a day. Where are you investing those hours? If I were to follow you around and observe you for those 5 hours, after about 10 days, I could tell you what is most important in your life. You might not like it, or you might not agree with it, but those 5 hours tell a story. For many, surfing the internet or texting is what's most important to you. For others, it's watching television or reading magazines is most important. Studies have shown that over a lifetime, the average person will spend 8 months opening junk mail, 2 years playing phone tag with people, and 5 years waiting for people who are trying to do too much and are always late. Is this really how we want to spend our time? Make no mistake, if you don't manage your time, someone or something else will manage it for you. Some people, for instance, complain that they just don't have enough time to spend with their family, or to go to church, or to help someone in need. Well, the truth is that they've got exactly the same amount of time as everyone else. They just aren't managing their time wisely. They need to own up to the choices that they're making and quit blaming others. They need to face up to the ways they're choosing to invest their time and realize that some investments yield rich dividends while others yield nothing. If you don't like your life, look at how you are investing your time. If you don't like your life, look at how you're investing your time. Second crucial issue here. In both the psalm and the hymn, the overriding idea is that the authors both think that their time is being wasted, that it's being lost. They want to learn how to make better use of it. They realize that the issue is investment. It's not simply the amount of time, but rather the use of it, using their time for activities that yield the highest payment. How about us? How are we spending our time? Throwing it all away or investing it in things that really matter to us? Second challenge here is to look at our lives and study how we are spending our time and deciding upon ways we can spend it better. What changes might you make in this regard in the year ahead? Making your life more about the things that really matter to you. Maybe put down that phone once in a while, or maybe go out and get involved in some program, or maybe stop and actually spend time with a loved one. Do you remember the old Harry Chapin song, The Cat's in the Cradle? First verse says, "My child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in the usual way, but there were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. He was talking before I knew it, and as he grew, he said, 'I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know I'm going to be like you.'" The second verse says, "My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, 'Thanks for the ball. Now come on, let's play. Can you teach me to throw?' I said, 'Not today. I've got a lot to do.' He said, 'That's okay.' And as he walked away, he smiled and he said, 'You know I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know I'm going to be like you.'" And the final verse then says, "I've long since retired and my son's moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said, 'I'd like to see you if you don't mind.' He said, 'I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time. You see, my new job's the hassle and the kids have the flu, but it's sure nice talking to you, Dad. It's been sure nice talking to you.' And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me, he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me." Undoubtedly, you've heard the song, but here's the rest of the story. Harry Chapin's wife, Sandy, actually wrote the words to that song after their son Josh was born, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. When their son was 7, Harry was performing 200 concerts a year, and Sandy asked him when he was going to take some time to be with his son. Harry promised to take some time at the end of the summer, and unfortunately, he never made it. That summer, a truck hit Harry's Volkswagen Beetle, and he was killed. His time was invested, but was it producing the maximum result? How are we being called to reinvest our time this year? Second concept to keep in mind to make the best possible use of the time and get the richest winnings: invest. Which leads us into concept number 3, movement. Have you ever heard of the word entropy? Entropy is a term used in physics that refers to the amount of energy that is available within a system, specifically the amount of energy not available to do useful work. The idea is that within a closed system, the amount of energy available to make something happen naturally decreases over time, and will continue to diminish to nothing unless new energy is brought in from the outside. Basically, in creation, what it says is things can't remain stationary. They are either decreasing and dying, or they are being enlivened by the influx of new input. A law not only of the physical world, but of the spiritual. Simply put, you are either growing or you are dying. And we see this happen every day in institutions and individuals. People who lock into one moment in their lives, one thought, one way of being, refusing anything new, slowly dying off. While others who are continually seeking some new experience, some new thought, some new challenge, they seem forever young. Which will be for us in the year ahead. Driving the thought in both the text and the hymn today, the authors want to use their time not just to survive, but to get better, to grow. They see how things are, how they are, and they don't want to remain this way. They want to get better. It's a crucial goal. Third key concept, very simply put, grow. Do something this new year that makes you somehow new. And understand, I'm not just talking about making some sort of New Year's resolution here. The problem with most New Year's resolutions is that they tend to be negative. The time ahead is almost seen as a curse, in which old bad things are gotten rid of, rather than as a blessing in which new good things are taken on. It's like I once heard this woman who she reworked, the familiar "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," but she did it over for the new year, and she writes, "'Twas the week after Christmas, and all through the house, nothing would fit me, not even a blouse. The cookies I nibbled, the fudge I did taste, all the holiday parties had gone to my waist. When I got on the scale, there arose such a number. When I walked to the store, less a walk than a lumber. I remembered the marvelous meals I prepared, the gravies and sauces and beef nicely rare, the pies and the cakes, the bread and the cheese, and the way I never said, no thank you, please. As I dressed myself in my husband's old shirt and prepared once again to do battle with dirt, I said to myself, as only I can, you can't spend the winter disguised as a man. So away with the last of the sour cream dip, get rid of the fruitcake, every cracker and chip. Every last bit of food that I like must be banished, till all the additional ounces have vanished. I won't have a cookie, not even a lick, I'll only chew on some long celery stick. I won't have hot biscuits or cornbread or pie, I'll munch on a carrot and quietly cry. I'm hungry, I'm miserable, and life is a bore, but isn't that what January is for? Unable to giggle, life no longer a riot, Happy New Year to all, and to all a good diet. Can you relate to that? Fortunately, most people can. It's a major mistake. It's seeing the time ahead as simply a time to get rid of things, rather than far better a time to take on new things, to keep becoming new. Don't give in to entropy. Don't give up things, take on things. Do something new. Read a book. Take a class. Take a trip to some place that you've always wanted to see. There's great stuff right here in New Jersey. Just go see something. Take up a musical instrument. Try your hand at painting. Join the church choir, Challenge yourself with some new way of serving the Lord. Whatever. What's the old saying? Everyone always wants things to be better, just so long as nothing changes. Well, it doesn't work that way. If you want something new and wonderful to happen in your life, you have to do something different. Infuse new energy into your life this year. Third key concept to keep in mind to keep the best possible use of the time in the new year ahead is movement. Make this new year new. And then finally, concept number 4, eternity. A number of years ago, a study was done in which people in their 80s and 90s were asked to reflect on their lives. If you had it to do over again, they were asked, what would you do differently? And there were multiple answers, but 3 responses dominated, and they were, first, I would reflect more. Many people felt that too much of their time was spent in doing and not enough time actually thinking about what they were doing and why. They just sort of went through the motions. Secondly, they said, I would risk more. Many people felt that important opportunities had been lost to fear or to procrastination, which is something of what we discussed last week. The need to take risks as part of our faith. Risk is an essential part of a full life. Thirdly, though, most folks said, I would do more things that would live on after I die. At the end of their lives, many now wish that they had devoted themselves to something bigger and more enduring than just their own existence. Reflect, risk, and leave a legacy. The first 2, of course, mirror some of the things we just considered, but in closing, let's consider the last. As noted at the outset, our text and our hymn today are based around a juxtaposition of humanity's fleeting time versus God's endless time. We seem to have very little time, while God seems to have all the time in the world. How do we get greater time? The answer? It's easy. Get our lives on God's time. That is, get out of our own mortality and more into God's eternity. Basically, make our lives more about eternal things than temporal things. This is how we finally make the best use of our time, and indeed, we expand our time. Final thought for the year ahead. Choose some way that you are going to be working for something beyond your own existence. Something that will outlive you. Something that is part of God's eternal work in the world. And your time in the new year ahead will be most richly blessed of all. It may be something simple right within the personal relationships that you already have. It may be something out in the world at large. But whatever, this year seek some cause, some purpose, bigger than yourself. In closing, one author writes, in 2005, when Thomas Cannon died of colon cancer in a hospital in Richmond, Virginia, he was 79 years old. Thomas described himself as a poor man's philanthropist. When Thomas was 3 years old, his father died, and once Thomas's mother remarried, the family of 6 lived in a 3-room wooden shack without running water or electricity. As an adult, Thomas went to work with the Postal Service. He never made more than $25,000 a year. Upon his retirement, he and his wife lived very simply. Yet over the course of 33 years, Thomas gave away more than $156,000. His gifts were mainly in the form of $1,000 checks given to people he read about in the newspaper who were going through hard times or who especially exemplified courage or kindness. A youth worker in a low-income apartment complex, a volunteer faithfully serving at an elementary school, a Vietnamese couple wanting to return home to visit, and a teenager abandoned as an infant were some of the recipients of Thomas's benevolence. Thomas's motivation came from an incident that happened as a young man while he was away at Naval Signal School. When an explosion at Chicago's port took the lives of many of his shipmates, Thomas concluded that he had been spared to help others, and this led to a passion for giving. Coates and his wife lived very simply, even frugally, but they were well known for being incredibly happy. It seems because they had discovered the secret to having the time of their lives, namely, live for a purpose that outlives you. Or teach us to number our days, says the psalmist. A new year's before us. We've each won the lottery. Let's collect our winnings. Make great use of the time ahead of us. Remember, T-I-M-E, thankfulness, investment, movement, eternity. Let us now prepare to celebrate the sacrament of our Lord. Would you please turn to the order for Holy Communion, found on page 12 in the front of the hymn.